Because nothing costs $1 anymore. So you 2 pennies each time you go up $1. Louise, okay, you do the fucking math in your head. Buenas den Hofade. We're having an early show tonight because if you can't tell, I'm getting sick and I need to just get the fuck out of here and go home. But there are some important things to discuss tonight, and so we had to have this show. We're now 42 days brining since Rendradi, the Turkey Selislim Tiako, publisher of the Pacific Daily News, decided not to publish the story about how her friend Jim Herbert, the past chairman of the Guam Chamber of Commerce, ran his happy ass into the Akanta Mall after getting Christine Calvo drunk at the Guam Hotel and Restaurant Association charity gala 42 nights ago, then reversed, hit a bus stop, which hit a guy in it, and that guy got injured. And Rendradi has not published the story, just like how she has not published any stories about how her editor for some time was, and his name is David Crisostomo, was peddling drugs out of the PDN newsroom and out of the Federal Public Defender's house. We're never going to hear stories about it because, well, the establishment likes to cover itself up. But we like to expose all that shit. And we're glad that you join us in these episodes where we expose things and that you share our episodes. And we very much appreciate that. It really is because of you that we were able to get much needed information out into the community, most recently about the Palmophanus issue. And first of all on that, thank you to everybody who participated and who gave their support to the Enough is Enough walkout at 5:05 p.m. tonight. Saw lots of people out, so great job everybody all around. Special thanks to Speaker Tina Munya-Barnes for leading that walkout effort, and to Senator Therese Terlahi for actually leading an inquiry into the parole board even before this became a media issue. It says a lot about her leadership. Now, there are a lot of things to cover tonight on this Palmophanus issue, and we're going to get to a second person who we found just today was paroled. He's a sex offender, a child rapist who was paroled by the Guam Parole Board over the last few years. And we're finding more and more that during the Calvo administration, under Michelle Taitano's leadership, and most likely, sources are telling us, most likely by the direction of former Chief of Staff Frank Arreola, former Deputy Chief of Staff Rose Ramsey, former Chief of Staff Mark Calvo, former Calvo thug John Mofnis, who is closely related to Paul Mofnis, paroled a bunch of people who shouldn't have been paroled, from child sex offenders to murderers, and then a bunch of people who probably should have been paroled, but were not politically connected, were not paroled. And we'll have more about that in a later episode. But I just wanted to bring that up because not just that inquiring minds want to know, but we're seeing a pattern that is evolving when we look back at the last 8 years and see how from one case to another, not just Paul Mofnis, but other people were let out into our streets. And it is cause for concern. It flew under the radar that this government that you've trusted. Sorry, I'm having a hard time talking because I'm having a hard time breathing, not just because I'm fat, but because I'm coming down with some kind of something, I don't know. But the government that you should have trusted for if anything. Maybe you don't trust it when it comes to your finances, when it comes to getting your tax refunds out, to tell you the truth about the financial situation, to do something, bold and reform-minded regarding education, to provide the best health care. At the very least, you expect your government to protect kids. And there was no reason in your mind to suspect otherwise. But as we're seeing in the research that we're conducting here at Candid News, that's just not happening. There's this story that we found on KUAM. Why don't we go to my screen now, Chalu? It's called Students Come Forward, Allege Abuse by Coach. It's a story by Nick Delgado. It reads, a 17-year-old has come forward alleging that when he was 7, he was forced to perform oral sex and was sodomized. The accused, Chris Leon Guerrero, has since been arrested and placed behind bars facing rape charges. And you'd think this story would end there. A whole new set of allegations have come forward against this longtime youth basketball coach. The recent arrest of Leon Guerrero has resulted in 2 students at Unsalon Middle School coming forward with allegations that he made inappropriate gestures to them. The students started gossiping about it and stories were floating around campus, stated acting principal Valerie Kaipat. She says 2 8th graders confided in a male teacher about the incidents they claim occurred when Leon Guerrero was coaching their basketball team. The 29-year-old was arrested this week for allegedly sexually abusing a male minor repeatedly since the victim was 7. Leon Guerrero had been the boys' basketball coach for the last 2.5 years until he stopped reporting to work on January 20. Quote, that's where we realized either he wasn't going to come back, and then the story broke out that he was arrested, and so a lot of the pieces started to fall in place, and at the school level, we had to start taking action in terms of protecting the kids, Kaipat said. Quote, we want to ensure parents that if students feel that they were harmed in any way, that our counselor team, our administrative team, teachers, and staff are ready for them, unquote. Leon Guerrero was also a coach with the Barrigada Crusaders basketball club for the under-14 boys division for the past 4 years. Another coach, John Lujan, tells KUAM, we didn't see anything different. It was unfortunate and unexpected. He adds, we are shocked at the news and we'll have to take it one day at a time. Kaipat says with the 2 complaints, Child Protective Services and the Guam Police Department were notified immediately. All right, so up until this point and through his conviction, all the people who should have done something did something, and the justice system worked. He was convicted in 2012, and then he had some 15-year sentence. He was facing life, but for some reason only got 15 years. 8 years of that were suspended. If he were not paroled, he would not be out of prison until November of this year, according to the terms of his sentence. However, he was paroled, and we found out because when we brought you that video this morning of Paul Moffness singing Christmas carols with Michelle Tyson, the former chairman of the Guam Parole Board, to kids. The title of this episode today is "Leading the Lambs to the Slaughter." Some idiot in Michelle Tyson's head told her it was okay to have Paul Moffness, a sex offender, against children, singing Christmas carols to kids. But it wasn't just Paul Moffness who was there singing Christmas carols. Chris Leon Guerrero was there too, and in this video we're going to show you, he's the guy, if you're looking at the screen, he's the guy on the right side, the second from the right. He's the tall guy in the maroon shirt. Let's take a look at the video now. Oh, sorry, I didn't realize it's just B-roll. So there's Chris Leon Guerrero, second from the right, a free man, at the invitation of Michelle Tyson, the board chairwoman of the parole board at the time, singing Christmas carols to kids. Just 6 years after he was convicted of raping several boys at school because he had access to them as a coach. And then Michelle Titano gives him access to more kids at this program. And these aren't just any kids. These are some of your most at-risk children. They're kids enrolled in the Angel Tree program. The Angel Tree program is for kids of prison inmates. Yes, so not only do these kids have to struggle with whatever life throws at them because their parents are not able to take care of them because they're in jail, they don't have the protection of their parents because their parents are in jail. And Michelle Titano, the parole board chairman, brings these sex offenders to these kids on Christmas like the sick fuck that she is. Just a disgusting display of arrogance and power gone wrong. And I don't know, I'm not sure if the Attorney General is going to look into all of this and whatever crimes may have been committed, because certainly there is a conflict of interest that exists when the parole board chairman is leading this extracurricular activity of sex offenders. There's always that, but then there's this other thing, probably more important, about sex offenders being around children during Christmas. And I wonder if she told any of the people, any of the guardians, any of the relatives of these kids, that the people who were singing to these kids, these Christmas carols, the people who they had sit on Santa's lap, were sex offenders. Not everybody in the video is a sex offender, okay? But we've been able to identify two of them, Paul Moffness and Chris Leon Guerrero. Just disgusting. Now, we did ask sources within the Department of Corrections to provide us more information regarding parolees, public information, and we were told, unfortunately, that there is an executive order or directive that exists from former Governor Calvo that effectively gags Department of Corrections employees from providing this information to the media. We're trying to get to the bottom of that, and we hope that Janella Carrera with the governor's office answers our inquiry. What we were able to get, though, we were able to get responses from several of your senators to questions that Candid News asked of them. And let me just read some of these to you. The first was from Senator Therese Talahi, who has really been the leader in the legislature, providing leadership on this issue. And the thing that we respect and admire most about what she has done is that she did this prior to the Paul Moffness incident on April 11, 2019. This was something that she was working on prior to this becoming such a big issue. So it wasn't like a reaction from her. It wasn't a political thing. It was a real thing that she was concerned about for the community. We asked her first, what prompted your review of the Guam Parole Board? And we asked Ariane Nepomuceno, Paul Moffness' last known survivor, prior to his arrest in the mid-90s, is livid with the government over Moffness' release from prison. She's beyond upset that Michelle Titano suggested fault arrest with a 10-year-old girl walking to the bus stop at 6:30 a.m. She is calling for sweeping change in the justice system to ensure this never happens again, including the removal of the current board members. Is this something you will look into, removal of board members and reform of the parole process? And then we asked her to give us a message from the perspective of a mother and an elected official to the 10-year-old girl who was raped and to all survivors of child rape. Her response was, this is Senator Therese Talahi's response. As a mother, you can go ahead and go to my screen, Chelo, so people can see this. As a mother of 3 daughters, I share the justifiable anger of the women and men in our community at the high number of criminal sexual offenses, and especially those against children on Guam. I am convinced that the incidences of repeat rapists warrants an urgent look by elected officials, the courts, and the entire criminal justice system at whether our current sentencing, imprisonment, rehabilitation, and release of sexual offenders is truly protecting our children and our community from repeat offenders. There are obviously gaps that need to be closed immediately to prevent further harm. We owe it to our children and to the survivors of these horrendous crimes to move heaven and earth to keep them safe. As a lawyer and in my capacity as chair of the Legislative Committee on Justice, I will begin with closing any gaps in our system that enable repeat offenders. We will ensure that laws that require victims to be heard and protected are enforced and that everyone is held accountable. We must immediately incorporate updated mental health, medical, and other tools to stop sexual crimes. And so that was a few days ago. And then we began to receive responses from other senators. We brought you the response from Senator Jocelyn Augustine on camera. Here's from Senator Clinton Ridgell. Now, after the email that we received from Senator Terlahi, we sent 7 questions to all senators, and I'll just go through them now. The first is Senator Terlahi has taken the lead on an inquiry into the parole board. She is trying to understand their processes and how board members arrive at decisions to parole or deny parole. Do you support this inquiry, and will you demand full transparency and accountability from the parole board through this process? Senator Ridgell's answer was, yes, I support this inquiry. We need to take a close look at the process to understand how they arrive at their decisions so that we can determine what in the process needs to be changed, improved, or fixed in order to prevent the early release of serial rapists. The second question, if it is found that parole board members acted arbitrarily and capriciously on official actions, will you support their removal from office? He plainly just says yes. Do you support mandatory life sentences without the possibility of parole for adults convicted of raping children? Senator Ridgell says, I am open to the idea. I'd have to review the specific piece of legislation proposed first. What is the definition of a child in this instance? Is it a minor under the age of 21, a minor under the age of 18, a minor under the age of consent, or does it follow the definition of pedophilia, which is the sexual attraction to pre-pubertal children, etc.? The fourth question, what are your thoughts on legislative solutions barring prosecutors from offering plea deals to those charged with raping children, first degree CSC, that effectively exchanges a plea to a lesser charge for a reduced sentence? He says, I haven't put much thought to this. I need to review and better understand the process. The fifth question, prior to the April 11 incident, the acting chief of police came under fire by other media outlets for reorganizing the Guam Police Department. His reorganization fell in line with the Leon Guerrero Tenorio administration's bold criminal justice reform initiatives, which begins to characterize the drug epidemic as a public health crisis. Hence, the movement of police resources from a square focus that the Mandania Drug Task Force gave to drug interdiction so that GPD could focus on violent crimes, like the one committed on April 11. Do you support the police chief in his efforts, and will you commit to more resources for GPD in this regard? How about the resources the Attorney General will need in the prosecution of these crimes? His answer, yes, I agree with this approach. I believe we should focus on violent crimes, and I agree that the drug epidemic is a public health crisis. We do need to focus our resources on more serious crimes. The sixth question, Ariane Nepomuceno, who is Paul Montes' final known survivor prior to his arrest in 1995, and whose bravery against her attacker led to his conviction, has been very critical of the government of Guam for its failure to ensure the attack against the 10-year-old girl could be prevented. What is your response to Ms. Nepomuceno? His response to her, it is a shame that despite her bravery in facing her attacker, the justice system failed and allowed her attacker to commit the same crime on another innocent girl. And then finally, what message do you have for the 10-year-old girl? Senator Clint Ridgell's message to the 10-year-old girl is this. The justice system failed you. The government failed you. We as a society failed you. Although I wish I could, I cannot reverse this injustice. All I can do is offer my sincerest of apologies and the promise that I will do my best to work with others to fix the failures of the system. Finally, we have a response that just came in from Speaker Tina Munoz Barnes. You can keep it on my screen, Chalu. On the first question regarding support for Senator Terlahi's initiatives on parole and transparency and accountability on the parole system, she says, I commend my colleagues, Senators Amanda Shelton and Therese Terlahi, for taking the lead in examining and understanding what goes on in the Guam Parole Board. With regards to my demands, it's not about transparency, accountability, or being politically correct. In this instance, clearly a grave error was committed, and I demand answers. What happened in this case should have never happened to begin with. We need to take this opportunity to do right by the victim and make sure this never happens again. At the end of the day, what's the point of a judicial system, a corrections department, if the parole board would just let you out? To the second question about the removal of board members, she says, from my understanding, the governor had already appointed a replacement to certain members of the parole board. If it is found that an individual acted arbitrarily and capriciously, let's not forget that nobody is above the law. To the third question regarding life sentences, she says, you know, Troy, within my office there has been debates for life sentences and the death penalty for adults convicted of raping children. 25 years life, the death penalty, I am still weighing my options, understanding the current law, understanding the constitutionality on whether or not we can do certain things. But raping children, that I do not condone, and the status quo, it seems like it's not working. To the fourth question regarding plea deals, she says, a few months ago I introduced Bill 51 to prohibit judges from handing out discounted sentences that are less than the minimum for criminal sexual conduct against minors. I also co-sponsored Bill 52 that would strengthen minimum sentences for anyone convicted of CSC. Is that enough? Well, I look forward to the public hearing coming up next so we can hear from the stakeholders and see if we are doing enough. On the fifth question regarding the chief of police and his efforts to reorganize the department so that more resources are focused on violent crimes, she says, I wholeheartedly support the reorganization of the Guam Police Department. Police presence has increased in our neighborhoods, officers are getting recruited, and I am glad that they can focus on real crimes and their partner agencies will focus on rehabilitation. With regards to resources to the Attorney General and GPD, I think we finally have leaders that understand the difference between working smart and working harder. At the end of the day, dollars and cents do play a role in prosecution of these crimes, and I will do what we can to aid them as our finances permit. Number 6, on the message to Ariane Nepomuceno regarding the failure of the system, she says, Ms. Nepomuceno is right. We failed her. We can keep apologizing, keep pointing fingers, but that doesn't solve the problem. Actions speak louder than words, and in the coming weeks and months, I hope my colleagues in the 35th Guam Legislature can form a united front against criminal sexual conduct. And her message to the 10-year-old girl who was raped on April 11, our government failed you, our community failed to keep you safe. This should never happen to any person on Guam and on Earth. We stand by you, we support you, and I extend my thoughts and prayers to you and vow to make a difference to prevent this. There you have it. We have more and more of our leaders coming forward to say enough is enough. Sadly, it took the rape of a 10-year-old girl by a monster who should not have been out on parole to wake this community up so that everybody can take a stand, but at least it's happening. But we can't forget that there are more of these people out there and that the parole board over the last 8 years apparently has been letting people out just like this. We just saw Chris Leon Guerrero. Before we go, there is some news I wanted to bring you, and it was thank you, Andrea Pelicani, for sharing this. The Attorney General, this is on a completely different subject. This is regarding the pay raises over at the Consolidated Commission on Utilities for, I think this is the GPA pay raises, maybe even the GWA pay raises. A letter from the Attorney General to Joseph Duenas, dated April 23. Our office reviewed the minutes of the November 27, 2018 Consolidated Commission on Utilities regular board meeting. According to the minutes, salary adjustments of executive management were discussed in executive session in violation of the Open Government Law. The Open Government Law prohibits such discussions and provides in relevant part, quote, under no circumstances shall a public agency hold an executive or closed meeting to discuss salaries, salary levels, or salary adjustments of any employee or officer. All such discussions or decisions must be held in a public meeting and minutes shall be kept and open to the public, unquote, citing 5 GCA subsection 8111A. Any action in violation of the Open Government Law is void ab initio. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Therefore, any salary adjustments approved at this meeting are void ab initio. Any salary adjustments or bonuses authorized and paid as a result of this meeting must be paid back by these employees. Should you have any questions and or concerns, please do not hesitate to contact me at 475-3324, extension 5015. Sinceramente, Levin Titano Camacho, boss extraordinaire. He just said, fuck you, CCU. Hey, it's the AG, not me, okay? But there you go. That's all the news that we have for you tonight. Well, that's all the relevant news, the news that matters today on Guam. Thank you all. I'm gonna go home. I need to go to sleep, and I need to get better so we can rock the world again tomorrow. That's all.
That's all.
Union, which exposed the
That's all.
exploitation.
That's all. That's all. That's all. That's all. That's all.